Hi everyone, I'm Ashley Chandler. Welcome to our Master Seller webinar on Google Sites. I'm from our user operations team, and I work primarily on our user strategy for Google Sites and Google Docs and a couple other of our apps products. And I'm here to talk a bit about some of the advantages of using sites for enterprises and some of the opportunities that I think are available for you and other resellers. So here's a quick look at our agenda. Sorry about that, jumped ahead. So I'll talk a little bit about what Google Sites is, where we are today, where we see ourselves next year, and what we're working to get out to the rest of you guys. Then I'll talk a bit about some of the recent features and some of the enterprise response to those features. And then finally, at the end, I'll talk briefly about some of the ways you can expand on sites through using our APIs. Okay, so let's get started. I think one of the main advantages of sites and something that Sites does really well is that we've really identified a problem. And I think what a lot of companies do in any industry is to start building something. It's exciting to build a product, whether it's software or any other product. That's the fun part. So once you've built the product, probably the next most fun thing is to build cool features. And I think something that sometimes gets lost in that process, and what I think Sites has done really well, is identifying a problem or a need. And that's really where this should all start from. And I think Google Sites is a product built with a focus and with something it's trying to fix. And so what Sites does really well is facilitate business collaboration. Sites makes it extremely easy to publish and access up-to-date information and make sharing and collaboration among and across business teams really simple. And so I think today the problem that we're trying to fix is that sharing in most businesses is broken. So you have to have an advanced web design skills to publish information broadly or to coworkers, or you have to be given access to the company's infrastructure to do this. So there's constantly a lot of out-of-date resources floating around with employees not knowing which information to trust, and then oftentimes just disregarding all of it as a result. And instead, this type of important information is left to word of mouth or to emailing the same people to get the answer, and having those people get those questions over and over again, like HR or different organizations within the company. So there's no real system for ensuring that the information companies need is currently available and available really quickly and easy to find. And then in addition to not having the means to publish this information or for employees to know if it's current, most enterprises are lacking the organization that allows employees to keep track of where that information is. So I think we've identified a clear problem here. Collaboration in businesses is really broken. This lack of information sharing and collaboration really hinders a company's efficiency. It increases its operating costs, and then it slows down the spread of innovation among its employees. So the goal of Google Sites is really simple. We want to make collaboration easy. We want to create a way for people and businesses to publish information quickly and also easily, and then we want to make this information easy to find. So I think Sites has created a really good tool for doing all of these, and we've got a lot more coming up. So just a quick overview here of what Sites is for some of you that are a little less familiar with this, and some of the advantages. Basically, we make a really easy publishing platform. And a lot of times people just assume these are all public websites, but a lot of, I think our more common use case is a team site or a project site. We also have websites, or people also use sites for websites, but I think there's a lot of different functionality, and we've seen a lot of really good examples of this both in enterprises and among our consumers. So we make it really easy to edit a site, and it really is literally as easy as editing a document, particularly if you're used to editing a Google Doc, because it's pretty much the same interface. And it's just typing, so nothing, there's no HTML required, there's no other types of coding skills required that a lot of websites require in order to make them. Sharing sites for viewing or editing with a small group. We give you a lot of controls over your sharing settings or over your access settings. So at the time of setup, everyone has the option of determining whether the site should be a public site or whether they want to explicitly share it with a group or with individuals. So we make it so that sites can be shared just for viewing. We make it so that sites can be just edited, or so you can have a co-owner. And we make this so that you can share within your domain only, or with a certain group, or again, if you're making a public website, that's also a possibility. Sites pulls together a lot of different types of information. This is something that Sites does really well. It ties in the rest of our applications really, really well, and it makes, adding things like embedding a Google presentation or embedding a custom map with directions to your office or directions to your work event pretty much 2 clicks. So it's a really good container for all of our other products, and it interacts really well with those products. So I think a lot of times we'll hear from customers, well, I use this, but it's nothing like this other product, and why aren't they just work together? And I think Sites is one of the products that just really ties in things really well. So you'll notice once you start using Sites, and for those of you who have used Sites, that there's kind of 3 buttons that are the most useful, and they're in the upper right corner. And one of them is the Edit Page button, and you can click that button on any page that you're in within your site, and what you'll see is that the editor will come up. It'll look just like Google Docs, and you'll be able to just start typing away. But you'll also see in the upper left corner something, a drop-down called Insert. And the Insert menu lists pretty much everything that you can insert into that site, and that list is growing. So you can insert a Google form, you can insert a Google map, you can insert a Picasa web album. There's a lot of possibilities here, and there's also a lot of custom gadgets out there, which is another opportunity, I think, for resellers. We find a lot of our customers want to really customize their home pages that they build on sites, and a lot of times what they'll end up looking for is partners that can create custom gadgets just for them. So, Sites does a really good job of pulling in all different types of information into one really easily accessible and really easy to publish platform. And then finally, what's all of this without the benefit of search? So Sites really does leverage the power of Google search technology so that you always get really fast and really relevant search results. And it doesn't just search the text of the site, it also searches the attachment. So if you're looking for something you've attached to a page of a site, that'll come up as well. Okay, so here's just a couple examples of some of the customers that are using Sites today. And we've seen a lot of growth with Sites over the past couple months. This has been a really busy year for Sites. There's been a lot of features we've launched. We've grown really fast. I'll tell you about some of those coming up. But the reaction from enterprises has been really great. We have companies using Sites, like I said, for team workspaces. A lot of companies using Sites for project management. Delta Hotels just started using Sites, and they're primarily focused on using them for budget planning. And then another really interesting use case we saw this past year with the H1N1 virus. We saw a need from counties and city government to respond as quickly as possible and to get information out there as quickly as possible. And we realized that this was just a perfect place for the use of Sites. And we saw more and more of these types of organizations and these governments starting to use Google Sites so that they could do just that. They didn't need to wait for a web designer. They didn't need to wait for somebody that had special web design skills. They just started typing away. They made sites that told everybody about emergency resources, about the hospitals and which hospitals are recommended, with information on the swine flu, with where the best sources of other information are, updates from the CDC. And they were able to do this just really, really quickly and really easily. So this was a pretty good example of the benefit of using Sites. And I'll on the next slide here, I'll show you a little bit about what some of our enterprise response has been. So from Serena, they say, we're moving our project web workspace collaboration to Google Sites because it requires less expertise in administration than SharePoint, and it's easier for employees to use. Better ease of use directly translates into more fluid information sharing, which helps our teams move faster and cross-pollinate good ideas. From Brady, we see Google Sites is a very efficient way for our teams to aggregate and share information together. With our old IBM Lotus Clicker solution, it took 7 clicks and 3 page refreshes for employees to publish new information internally. Google Sites makes it just 2 clicks. Because Sites makes it so easy, coworkers are sharing information more freely than ever before. And that last sentence is really the goal. I mean, that's what we want to make easy. We want to make sure that there's opportunity for people within organizations to work together, and we want to make that as easy as possible. I think another thing we've seen is that businesses today are not really all located in one physical office. So there's a lot of benefits of actually seeing the people you work with, but that's not always the case. We've talked to a lot of customers that have offices all across the world, and what they've found is that Sites does a really good job of tying in everything together and keeping it really dynamic, so that no matter what time zone you're on, and no matter who's in the office or not in the office, somebody has the ability to come in, check the team site, check the project site, see what was done while they were sleeping, and see what's assigned to them today, check current information. It's also a really good resource. Like I said in the beginning, you'll notice that certain people will get asked over and over about certain projects or developments within the company, and Sites is a great way to avoid getting all of those questions over and over, and really just posting quickly any updates to projects or any updates to company news. And then finally, from the city of Santa Clara, like I mentioned with the H1N1 virus you see here, typically public information officers create press releases and other content in Word documents, email these to their web people, and wait for the web folks to update the website. With Google Sites, the Santa Clara Public Health Department public information officers were able to directly and instantly publish and update content for the web. This brings critical information to local residents without delay, and government agencies don't need to worry about their servers being overwhelmed with website traffic. So that's just a few of the things that our business customers are saying and some of the ways that they've found Sites useful. So again, I think we talked about this in the beginning. We're really focused on a specific problem here, lowering the barrier to collaboration. And there are a lot of similar products out there. There are some similar products with a lot more features. But the number of features you have doesn't always make you the best product. In fact, a lot of times it's just the opposite. And what Sites does is really focus on making collaboration easy. So we make Sites a really intuitive, less complex workspace collaboration tool. This requires much less administration for IT departments. And again, it's much more affordable since none of this is hosted on-site at the company, which is really, really expensive to maintain, and then just the storage itself is expensive. So, with Sites, there isn't an intense setup process, nor is there a really high learning curve. That's something we've paid really close attention to. We've seen really advanced web designers use Sites to create, high graphics websites out there, but we've also made sure to design this product so that anyone can create a site. We want anyone to be able to sit down, open Sites, and get started creating websites, project sites, wikis. We want to make this something that has very little barrier to using it and really enable our users. So we've changed traditionally challenging and skill-based work to be a really easy process that pretty much anyone can do. And then, just a couple more examples here of what we think is pretty easy to just get started making. We've seen people use Sites for intranets, for extranets, for team sites, for project sites, employee profile pages, file shares, wikis. And there's a lot of things that people use Sites for at work that are, really work functional. But I think, a lot of companies have kind of extracurricular activities these days. So we also see a lot of things like, the lawyers' basketball league, or, planning a work event outside of work, or the work holiday party. A lot of that is made really easy with the integration of Sites and how it ties in some of our other products. Okay, so if you needed more reasons to know that Sites is easier than purchasing a product and hosting it yourself, here are just a few. There's no server infrastructure to own and manage, and a lot of the customers that we've talked to said that this was just a really big burden for them in the past, and that a lot of times this is something that IT decision makers don't realize the cost until they actually start growing and start having to support this on a regular basis. So one thing that we've just consistently heard from from our customers is that sites and our apps in general scale really, really well. And a lot of times, we're relatively new to the enterprise business, and so a lot of our early customers were really small businesses. And so, a couple years ago, we had a lot of 8-person, under 10-person customers. And what's happened to those customers over time is that they've, tripled, in some cases quadrupled their size. They've grown really, really fast. And what we've heard from all of them is that sites in particular and apps in general has done a really good job of scaling with them as they've grown, and not only has not hindered their growth, but in a lot of ways has enabled that. So I think, not having to purchase additional server infrastructure, not having to maintain that and expand upon that as you grow is a really big advantage. There's no complex licensing to manage. This is a pretty simple pricing model. It's $50 per user per year for apps, as you guys all know. There's no problems scaling, as I mentioned. There's no updates or patches to manage. So, as with the rest of our apps, I think you guys are all pretty familiar with how quickly we launch new features, and the rate of innovation that you see with Google products is pretty incredible. So if you look at Sites in the beginning of this year to Sites now, it's I wouldn't say it's a totally different product, but it has a lot more just in that short amount of time that we've heard from our users. Features that they really wanted, functionality that they really wanted, and we're able to adapt to that pretty quickly to get it on the roadmap and to make sure that we push it out to users as quickly as we can. So it's not something where our end users or our IT admins are required to do any work on their side. Features and any sorts of issue fixes are pushed pretty quickly. So again, no problems offering collaboration across a geographically distributed workforce. This is something we've heard from customers a lot as companies expand internationally and less people are required to come to an actual geographical location. There's no problems accessing sites from anywhere. Again, I talked to a lot of our customers, one in particular who owns a company that sells organic products to different large retailers, and because of that kind of one-man show that he's running or an operation where he has himself and then a lot of different farmers and a lot of different people in other countries, he's constantly on the go and oftentimes in places that don't have a great connection. So downloading something is not going to work for him, but he's said that Sites and the way that he's run his business using apps has really enabled him to be very mobile, very on the go, very independent. He says he remembers a moment where he was in the middle of Tel Aviv and had to engage with one of his customers, and instead of sending a long email with a lot of attachments, what he did was create a site, invite that person to the site, and they had pretty much everything they needed to know. They had pictures of the farm, they had a presentation on prospective growth, they had a spreadsheet with the price points, and it's really all in one place. So he felt like that was a really powerful moment for him, and I think that a lot of our customers tell us similar stories. Let's see, no admin involvement required to set up a new site. Again, we've talked about this earlier. We've really made sites as easy as possible so that anyone can create a website or a team site or a project site or a wiki. And we've recently added templates, which I'll talk about a little bit later, that make this even easier. So no software add-ins required for admins to offer functional sites. No technical expertise required by a user to create and edit rich dynamic sites. And this really makes it something that's very easy for anyone to use and anyone to start using. And we also know that one of the things that we hear from customers is there's a couple barriers to switching over to new applications. And one of them, again, is more of a technical issue where you have to migrate your data to these new platforms and to using different infrastructure. But what we also hear is that there's definitely a cost for companies having to train their end users on using different types of products. And so I think what we've really focused on with Sites is eliminating kind of the special skill set that used to previously be required to make these types of sites. So, we're very aware that we want these products to be as easy as possible for our end users to use, because we know that that has an impact on their internal help desks and on the admins, and that this affects their decisions as well. So we focused on trying to make these as easy as possible. I think, no check-in, check-out hassles with shared documents and sites. Everything's available, everything's in the cloud, everything's shared with whomever you want based on the access that you set. And then finally, no challenges sharing and collaborating securely with people external to the organization. And we give you a lot of granular controls with sharing so that admins can control whether things can be shared outside the domain at all, if that's not something that they're interested in. If they're more concerned about security or sharing of information externally, then they can prevent that altogether. But we give you a lot of controls to make those decisions yourself. Okay, so I think I have a couple questions from some of the people in the audience. So let me just take a look at that. So first question, how secure are private group sites? How do we position the security to clients and make them comfortable putting confidential information into Google Sites? So I think that's a good question. That is something that we've been very careful with, and it's a balance. I think that sharing and collaboration is really a key foundation to this product, and it's something that we try to make as easy as possible. But we also know that that needs to be balanced with security as well. So we've tried to create as many levels of control without kind of hindering that as possible. So like I've mentioned, we allow the admin, or the admin can determine whether sites can be shared at all outside the domain or public at all outside the domain. So that's kind of your first wall of security. You can limit that altogether. And then the other thing you can do is you always have the option to make something public just to your domain, or to explicitly invite a group or explicitly invite individuals. And even inviting those individuals, there's control levels for what they're able to do. So you can invite people as collaborators and they're able to edit. You can invite people just as viewers. And then you can also add people as owners so that you can co-own a site with people and have full control over that. So you really do have a lot of control over who accesses these sites, and I think we balance that pretty well with making sharing pretty easy and pretty intuitive. Okay, is there a blogging component in the works for an internal blog? This is something we've heard a lot recently, and it is something that is definitely on our radar. We've definitely tried to add functionality to sites that enables some of the uses we see for blogging and for collaborating on those blogs. So I think we have some of that functionality. I think announcements and RSS feeds are a couple of features that have added to that, and we've heard from bloggers that they've really wanted, so we've made sure to work that into the product. So we have an announcements page. You can subscribe to RSS feeds for public sites, but we do know that this is something that users want to see tighter integration on. So we are thinking about that, and we're thinking about that going into 2010, and hopefully you'll start to see some more development in that area. Okay, is Sites also SAS 70 audited like apps? Yep, the SAS 70 audit included all parts of the app suite, including Sites. Let's see. Must anyone who shares a site have their own Google account? So in order to create a site, you need a Google account. In order to edit a site, you need a Google account. This gets tricky with domain settings. If you were creating a public site and you weren't tied to a domain or to whatever kind of settings or restrictions they've made, anyone can view that site, and you don't need a Google account. However, if you're within a domain and you want to share something outside your domain, that may be something that the admin requires, and a lot of times you'll have to log into the domain to see that. Let's see. So let's see, is it possible to import wiki pages and content from Confluence. I'm not particularly familiar with Confluence, but I'll talk a little bit more about our APIs down the road. We do have, what the APIs do enable is to automatically export and import from sites and re-import into other applications. I don't think that there's a tool that's been written specifically for Confluence, but it's definitely something that's possible with APIs. Okay, how do you create your own favicon for your Google Sites website? I do not know this off the top of my head, but I do know that there's a Help Center article on this. So if you go to sites.google.com/support, you should be able to search for favicon, and there's an article about doing that. Okay, so I will check back for questions throughout this, but I'll move on to the next section here, which is, what is innovative about Google Sites, and I'll talk a little bit about some of our features. Okay, so let's see, the basics here. So at the core, Sites is a wiki, and it's about making it as easy as possible to publish information. We find that many organizations, again, we've talked about this a little bit, have a huge barrier to publishing information, whether that's to a small group, to the entire organization, or to the world. So we believe that the lower the barrier to publishing, the more efficient the organization is. So domains in Google Apps can create unlimited sites. They can add unlimited pages to those sites. And like a wiki, the version history is stored in each page or file. And you can also see the site activity page shows who's done, who's taken what action and when, and you can go back to different versions and make sure that you have control over that. Also, a lot of times people ask, do I have to use Google Docs to use Sites? I think that the integration between the two products is really, really smooth, so I think it's a pretty good experience. But we also know that, people like PDFs, and people like to make sure that people have, documentation for everything, and those might not always be in Google Docs. So you can absolutely upload files, attach them to your site. We have a file cabinet page. You can use that as well. And all of those files are indexed as well. So when you search across sites, you'll see those in the results. And like I just mentioned, there's a lot of different types of pages that you can add to your site. So there's obviously text, which is really, really easy editing. You can insert anything into any page. Okay, maybe not anything, but you can insert a lot of different types of gadgets. You can insert web albums, presentations, forms, docs, custom maps. You can insert most anything into your site. We have an announcements page, so you can, keep. We see this a lot with teachers in classrooms announcing new assignments or announcing deadlines, and then you can feed from the announcements page to your front page or your landing page to show any updates there as well. List pages. List pages are great for keeping track of action items for a project or keeping track of who is bringing what to a certain event. And then file cabinets, like I just mentioned, are a great way to use the page type to attach documents or documentation about a certain project or assignments or research. It ties everything in one place so that things aren't all in your email inbox. Okay, sharing. And so really, sharing is at the core of this product. I've talked a lot today about collaboration and sharing, so this is something that we've tried to make as easy as possible and to give users as much control over as possible. So sites can be shared with a specific list of people, a group, the domain, or the world. Sites can be shared with users from outside the domain if the admin likes it or allows that. They can also share it to the entire domain. And then owners control sharing and the site theme. Collaborators can create and update content, and then viewers can view and search the content. So that's kind of a general breakdown of what the different access rights per role are. Okay, site templates. So this is probably our biggest launch of the year, I think. There's been some big ones. But I think this one really stands out. And again, one of the real advantages of using apps is that we're very Tied into it, our users ask for, and users want, or users need, and this is something that we heard from a lot of users. So this was a priority for us for 2009, and we worked hard to get it out. And basically, what site templates do is make using sites even easier, or make creating a site even easier. So sites are pretty much pre-packaged workspaces. They can be any type of site. They can be project workspaces. They can be team sites, intranets, pretty much anything. And we've pre-populated some of those in all enterprise galleries and the consumer gallery as well. And basically what it does is instead of making it so that somebody who's creating a new site has to create the new site and then add a document and then create a page that's a file cabinet page and then create a calendar and add the calendar. And, you know, I think all of those things are really intuitive and pretty easy, but they're still time consuming. So what templates do is allows you to choose the type of site that you're looking to create. So if you're looking to create a team site, we have pre-packaged team sites with a lot of different page types in there and a lot of different information that you would need for creating this from scratch. And really all you do is choose the template, and then you have your team site, and you populate it with the information that's pertinent to your team. We have private company galleries that allow companies to build a repository of best practices. And then, you know, this I think is a really good opportunity for resellers. We allow third parties to deliver templated content to enterprises. So I think there's an opportunity here for really customizing and building some really advanced sites for enterprise end users, or sorry, for our enterprise users. So, you know, if this is something that you specialize in, you can consult with a new enterprise, ask them what they're interested in, and then build some of those sites on your own and add them to their gallery. So I think there's a lot of opportunities with site templates, but in terms of the end user, it really does eliminate some of the steps it takes to create a site, and again, makes things a little bit easier for the admins in terms of, you know, questions about how to organize things. So this is the what the user will see when they go to create a site, and so you'll click from the site's landing page or the site's homepage. You'll choose create a new site, and when you click that button, you'll have the option to create your site from scratch, or you can choose a template. So you'll see we have pre-populated some examples here: an intranet template, a project worksite template, personal profile site, and then a really commonly used site, a classroom site. And then you'll notice on the right, there's browse the gallery for more. So basically, this is you know, there's tons and tons of different templates in the template gallery that anybody can use. And then what we've also done is enabled it so that domains can have their own private gallery, so that if there's a commonly created site, like let's say there's a holiday party site, and that's created every year, and all they do is adjust it with, you know, the new year and some different information. Well, after HR, whoever's in charge of that, creates that site, maybe before they add, you know, a bunch of different specific information to it, they can upload it to the template gallery so that next year that site's available for them, and they can just make a few small changes. Same thing with team sites. I think that's a really common use case. And then you'll notice to the far left there's a blank site, and what we do is allow the enterprise admin to kind of create a theme or add the logo or add something that it will be on all new sites created from that site. So if you have like a little logo in the bottom right corner, or if you're in a law firm and you want every site to say, you know, privileged and confidential, you can create that blank site, and then any site created from that quote-unquote template will have that same information. So here's a few examples. I think those other examples are probably hard to see close up, but here's a couple examples of some of our pre-packaged templates that we offer that anybody can choose from. So we have a project tracking workspace, you know, tracks issues, risks, deliverables, keeps track of tasks, has a project calendar, probably uses a file cabinet page to keep track of project documents, project updates, so that people that are getting the same emails over and over again can just refer to the site, and then important contact information. And you'll notice on both of these sites there's a good use of gadgets. So a lot of times you'll have information on other pages. You don't want that cluttering up your front page or your home page, but you can pull that from other pages using gadgets. So you can see recent list items or announcements. And then a project wiki as well. So that's more of a team site, any messages, any updates, deadlines. And both of these are in our template gallery, can just be downloaded and customized for the customer. Here's an intranet template as well. There's a couple of these available, and this just helps companies get started. And again, it's not restricting. So if the company likes most of this but wants to get rid of like departments or some are food, that's fine. They can add or delete anything they want. They want to add to it. The point is that it really helps companies get started with some of this and gives them some idea for structure. Because I know sometimes people are really starting from scratch. And then finally, I think this is probably really relevant to this particular audience. Like I said before, one of the things that we hear from our customers is that, okay, we figured out the technical parts of this migration to apps, but we are getting a lot of questions from our end users. So we've created a couple of different resources for end user training. And both of these are in the template gallery. So one is our apps user training site, and this one is probably for companies that have some extra resources or something that resellers could help out with, because there is some editing to be done for this. There is some potential HTML editing to do, and it's just a little bit more advanced, but it's a really, really great resources for companies that have, or resource for companies that have people that can help really customize the site. It's pre-populated with some of our Google content to help users get started using these apps, and then it allows you to add any other information that you want to include for end users or remove as well. We also have something called basically a site creator, and that's at apps-learning-center.appspot.com. And what that does is create a custom site pre-populated with content based on the products or services that the admin has enabled, and it creates that site within the customer's domain, and then again allows them to add their logo, allows them to add additional information, but gives them the basics of kind of surviving those first couple weeks of transition. There's a great, Outlook, transitioning from Outlook to Apps Mail. It also really familiarizes, both of these sites really familiarize the end user with using sites. And I think they're just slightly different audiences. This one that's on the screen now is probably for more advanced, skilled editors, so they can really customize this. And then the one that I just referenced at AppSpot is for customers that want to just basically push a couple of buttons and have a resource for their end users that they can customize, when they have the time going forward. Okay, so a little more about sites. Embedding content. So we've talked about this earlier. Basically, the sites do a really good job of allowing users to insert content like spreadsheets, presentations, videos, slideshows. It's a great way to pull a lot of information together. Also, and this is again something I think is relevant to this group, it extends sites using gadgets to bring additional information into the site. So there's a really extensive gadget gallery, I guess that's the best word for it. There's also a lot of partners that help build gadgets, and this is also something that we hear a lot from new customers, that they want help customizing, creating customized gadgets for their company. And then, like I've mentioned, with the template gallery, there's also a private gadget gallery that allows users to select from domain-specific gadgets, and this can be restricted so that there's only domain-specific gadgets in there. And then finally, portals. This has been something that we've heard from a lot of our customers, that they've started to use this more and more. And what the portal page does is allow sites to be created that combine administrator controlled areas, and then also allow for some viewer personalization. So basically, owners control the site background, some information that's always there, and then viewers can personalize the bottom of the front page. So this makes it so that site owners can now use this type of page to allow individual viewers to personalize specific areas of a site, and then pages created with this template, like the one that's on the screen now, allow individuals to add and organize their own gadgets to customize the page. So the site owner chooses Start Page in the Page Type menu, and then adds content that they want everyone to see on the top, to the top of the page. And then each viewer can then customize the page to see their own personal gadgets. So this screenshot, for example, shows a corporate intranet site for a made-up company called Organic City. And everyone who visits the site will see the welcome message, important links, company news gadgets, etc. But then let's say a farm manager also sees everything that I just mentioned, but he sees 3 personal gadgets that he's added. So he's seen last year's harvest data. He's seen the breakdown of the company's dairy products, and then he's seen an org chart. So the farmer not only gets the general company information, but also information that's important to just him every time he visits the intranet. So we see more and more of these types of portal sites being built. Okay, so let's take a few questions again. Let's see. So how about embedding external code, Java, etc., that's not gadget or proprietary Google code? I think the answer here is, and we do hear from customers and from users about this, and our goal is to really give you full control over the look and feel of the sites, of your sites. And you can edit the HTML. However, there are some forms of HTML that we strip out on save. But we're constantly looking for secure ways to allow for more editing. And so this is something that we're really trying to do. We're just not quite there yet. So we're hoping some of this comes in down the line. Let's see. Can you restrict gadget use to only private gadgets? Within a domain, yes, you can. Let's see. Any chance to see Google Friend Connect integration coming soon, more than just comments? Yes, this is definitely on the roadmap. However, I don't have a good timeline for you on this. Let's see. Is there a function to archive a site, i.e. a project site, once the project is done, but you don't want to lose the data? You also don't want inactive sites cluttering up the system. So like I said, you can export the data. You can always export and re-import the data, and it'll save a static HTML version of that site. I don't know if that's the smoothest way. I guess what you're saying here, maybe that you want to filter out from the list of sites, old sites, or you don't want those coming up in your search results. There may be something you can do at the admin level with whatever search appliance you're using across your entire domain that can allow to filter out some of these with a custom search engine or something like that. But I'm not quite sure. So I guess one answer is you can always export your sites and save them so that you have access to that data in HTML version. And you can also potentially fudge around with the search settings for your domain. Okay, what are the key features that differentiate between sites and SharePoint? So, like I said kind of a couple times throughout this talk, I think that it doesn't really come down to which features differentiate the two products. I think they're coming from two different points of view. I think, what the Google's advantage in kind of getting into some of this enterprise space a little bit later is that we've been able to look back and see how these products are really being used, see what customers need, see what users need, and build a product for those needs. So I do think that, if you were to compare feature, for sure, SharePoint's going to have a whole lot more features. But I don't necessarily think that that's an advantage. I think that we've really, really done a good job of focusing on what our goal is with this product. So we've really focused on collaboration. We've really focused on making that as easy as possible. And we've really focused on creating a very easy way to publish information quickly without a lot of advanced web design skills. And we've also integrated a lot of our search technology so that those results and so that information come up quickly and are really relevant for users. So I think in terms of the product, if that's the problem that's trying to be solved in a company's organization, having better collaboration, having easier access to information, having easier ways to publish information, Sites is a really, really good product for that. And I think that there's some things coming down the line that will make that even better. I think the next thing I think of when I think in terms of designing products or thinking about products and making them, the best things for our users, the first thing I think of is the quality of the product. And I think of that, I think we think of that before we think of comparisons to other products. Secondary to that, I think in answering this question is cost. So I talked about this a bit in the beginning. There's a lot of overhead to investing in something that you need to host yourself, that you need to pay to maintain, that you need licenses for. I mean, I'm not sure the exact price of SharePoint licenses, but I think it's something like $150 for a personal use and, I don't know, hundreds for enterprise use. So I think right out of the gates, that's definitely a factor in this decision. $50 per user per year for all of our apps is obviously a much different price point. And then I think, when I think about scale, I think cost and scale are related, right? So I think the other thing that Sites does really, really well is scale. And I think that, not only has Sites not hindered growth, but in a lot of ways it's enabled growth. And we've seen this with our customers. We've seen some of our really small customers grow over the past couple of years, and over we've heard that this is one of the products that really helped with that. It really helped them engage new customers. It really helped them, open up offices in other countries where they could be, still have dynamic information, still have resources available to them, still collaborate. So I think, I'm sure that there are potentially savvier answers to that, but when I think about the comparison, those are the things that come to mind. Okay. Will you provide the ability to restrict privileges based on a page by page in the future? Example, AP can only edit pages 1 and 2, while AR can edit pages 2 and 3. So again, this is a product that's really does a good job of listening to its users. This is a team that does a good job of listening to its users. And I'm pretty sure that at this time, since we just launched our site templates, that this is probably our #1 user request. So we're very aware of that. We know this is something that users want, and we are absolutely working to get it out to you as soon as we can. We also know that users really wanted templates, so we focus a little bit more on that at the end of this year, but this is something that is definitely on the forefront, and I think that you'll be seeing it soon. I think in the short term, there's a way to either use documents, embedding documents that only certain people have access to, and there's also particularly edit access to. And then there's also a way to link to another site from your main site and have that site that is linked to only allow access to certain people. So we've seen people do that a lot to kind of get around this. Okay, so let's go on to the end slides here. And I'm just going to talk briefly about the API, because I don't want to go into too much detail here. But basically, one of the most powerful uses of sites is what the API allows developers to build. And this is where there's so much more potential. So the API really opens up a lot of opportunities, allowing third-party developers to access, integrate, and extend the platform. And the API allows for, really just a much richer richer user workflows across sites, and closer integration between other Google Apps products. So at Google, I think some of you have seen some of our blog posts about this, but data liberation is a really, really important feature for us across our products. We want to make sure that it's easy to get out of other products into our products, but we also really want to make sure that you can get your data out. So we recently added Sites APIs that make it easy for customers to migrate to Google Sites as well as migrate away from Google Sites. And so these APIs give read-write access to all site content, enabling a number of different use cases, including migration, as I mentioned, backup, data retention, etc. Let's see. So one example we've seen of this is a company called OfficeSync, which uses Sites APIs to save Office documents to sites from within Office. And this is something that, this was a somewhat recent launch, and it's something that we're still adding to and have a lot of other features coming into this API in the next year or so. But it's something we're really focused on. We know that this really just expands the potential of sites. And so we're focused on building a strong partner ecosystem around this API. And I think, again, this is something that resellers like yourselves can really add to, and a good opportunity for us to partner. So just some of the new functionality, I've talked a bit about this, but the new Google Data API is launching in Labs. It allows for read, add, edit. Sorry, let me start over. It allows you to read, add, delete, and manipulate sites content from within third-party applications. A content feed to create, edit, move, download, rename, and delete web pages of all types, comments and attachments. Activity feed, so it allows you to monitor, add, modify, and delete events for a site, and then it gives you a revision feed to look at particular revisions for any site's page. And this slide, I thought, does a good job. We get a lot of questions about API, and like I said, there's just about our API, and like I said, there's a lot of potential with the API, and there's a lot more coming down the line with it. But really, these are the types of questions that we hear from our users. So, a customer says, hey, all my project data is in SharePoint and Notes. I want to use Sites, but I don't know how to. I don't want to lose everything that we've created up to this point. What we hope that resellers can say and that our partners can say is, look, we can help you move a lot of that critical data over to Sites, and we even have ability to make those two systems work together. A customer says, I want to access or back up my Sites data. Look, it's your data, you own it. So this API really lets you download it all, make backups, etc. A customer asks if I can integrate my application with Sites. And, we say yes. You definitely can. If you make an update to a customer account, for example, in your CRM, you can now automatically update the corresponding project site. So it really helps tie in applications together. A customer says, I want to monitor sites changes. We have a gadget. You can use the API to create a gadget. So there's a bunch of different use cases for this that we've already seen, and it's pretty early out, too, so I think there's going to be a lot more. But we've seen third-party application integration, CRM, ERP, financial, Google Apps Learning Center that I mentioned, the one that's available through App Engine, that was created using the Sites API that allows customers with a click of a button to create a site that pulls information from a main site and pre-populates it in a customized way. Import and export, we talked about data liberation, backup, allows you to bulk upload into sites, migration, again, moving from SharePoint and Notes, and I think there was a question about this with another application. I think that, the API opens up some of those possibilities. Activity monitoring, and then looking at access revisions, which comes into play particularly with discovery and compliance processes. So a little about our open source data liberation project. So this allows you to really export an entire Google site as a static HTML page. And I talked about this a little before about the archiving. This is one option there. And HTML is embedded with site-specific metadata, allowing for re-import of the HTML back into sites. So if you want to access that information at a later date. The hierarchy and navigation is maintained. And then really, bottom line is it's a really good free open source tool to point customers to who want better access to their site's content for backup or for import. And that's a question that we get quite a bit. And like I said, we're really going to be focusing, this is one area we really want to extend. We want to make sure that we're looking for partners to build out this ecosystem. And I think this is someplace that a lot of resellers can get involved with as well. And then, like I said, this is just the beginning of the API, so we have some things coming up, permissions management, and this is something that we've heard from a lot of our users and that you guys asked today. So this will help once we launch page level permissions. You'll see some integration here and some more possibilities. API that allows for create site, for copy site, for site administration, and the API just gives us a lot more reach, but I think there's a lot of this that you can do today. And I've referenced a couple times those 3 buttons in the upper right corner. And I think familiarizing yourself with kind of the more actions button and manage site, a lot of this can be done there. So if you spend some time kind of exploring the options there, you'll see that you can copy sites today. So if if I'm working with a customer and I create a great site and they want access to that, I can customize that for them. I can add it to their domain. I can copy a site as well. I can add a site as a template. So I think we'll see these expanded upon coming up soon. And so if you want to know a little bit more about the API resources, there's a lot of documentation on code.google.com. So that's I think that brings us to the end of the presentation. And let me just do a quick scan for questions. Is there a way to upload Word docs to a site without being converted to Google Docs? Absolutely. You can attach anything. You can upload anything. Let's see. Questions about the language support for the API. Again, I would just go to code.google.com and that's a pretty good resource. Let's see. Is there a way to clean up the site directory? Several customers have many sites listed on sites on their domain. I think that this is something that we have heard from customers, so we're looking at figuring out a better way to present those results and potentially filter that page and give admins and/or end users a little more control over that page and customizing it. So a lot of good questions, and I really appreciate all of your time. And again, I hope that you will explore sites a little bit more. I think there's a lot of opportunities, particularly with the API, particularly with templates for resellers to engage customers and to offer additional services. And again, check out kind of the managed site options, check out that insert button, and I think the integration as well as kind of the developer opportunities are really good examples of areas where resellers and other partners can really come into play for customers here. So thanks again for all of your time.